I just started the recording.
Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. We're still waiting for one person, but I think I can get started with this piece first. As interim superintendent of SAU 21, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there's no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I'm confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We're utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the SAU 21 Joint Board Policy Committee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number, 646-876-9923, and webinar ID 868-0837-7457, or by clicking on the website address listed on the agenda. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing this meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the SAU 21 office at www.sau21.org. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please call 603-926-8992, extension 103, or email at revans@sau21.org. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes are taken during this meeting, shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there's anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Start with a roll call, please.
Greg Parrish,
Present, family in and out.
Leslie LaFawn,
Present alone.
Nermina Peterson,
Present, family in and out.
Kelly Huber,
Present, family in and out.
and Sharon Gordon.
Present and alone.
Okay, I have the roll call recorded.
Thank you. So we call the meeting to order, and first on the agenda is reorganization. So I will take any motions for nominations for the policy committee chair.
I make a motion that Greg Parrish be chair. You're too slow, Greg.
No.
I second.
Hey, it's one of those days.
Good thing is we only meet 4 times a year, Greg, so shouldn't be too bad.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay,
It's about time I chair committee.
Greg Parrish,
I just lost the whole internet. Oh, well.
Yeah, sure. I'll vote yes.
Yay.
Leslie LaFawn,
Yes.
Nermina Peterson,
Yes.
Kelly Huber,
Yes.
and Sharon Gordon.
Yes.
All right, that vote's recorded. Congratulations, Greg.
Excellent.
Thanks, Greg. Hand it over to you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is to nominate a vice chair to the policy committee. Can I get any nominations, please?
Well, Becky's not here. I'm sitting in for her, so I nominate her.
Yes.
See, and I was about to nominate you.
I'm not official. I'm just in here. I'm just sitting in for her. So
You know what? I'll second that. And we won't tell her you did this.
Right.
Greg Parrish,
Yes.
Leslie LaFawn,
Yes.
Nermina Peterson,
Yes.
Kelly Huber,
Yes.
and Sharon Gordon.
yes.
All right, and we'll let you tell Becky.
Okay.
You can blind copy us on that email. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of our minutes from January 13th. Do we have a quorum to do that? Or does that not matter?
I believe with my understanding, when you change a small committee like this, as long as if there were people at that meeting that approve it, then it's okay.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Rhonda, can we take a roll call?
Yeah, Greg Parrish,
Yes.
Leslie LaFawn. Leslie,
Yes.
Nermina Peterson. Nermina Peterson,
Yeah, I abstain.
Okay.
This is my first, yeah.
Kelly Huber,
I abstain. I wasn't here.
and Sharon Gordon.
I'm gonna vote yes because I was actually here somehow for Becky again.
Well, we'll see you at the next meeting too, Sharon.
All right, I have that vote recorded as well.
Okay. Dr. Killian, I've been a member on the policy committee. I followed this. Now we just go down the list of policies that we're looking to update.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
we're prepared to walk you through it. So Dr. Hobbs and I can walk you through these. And Heather Cronin is here to also provide some information when we get to the high school pieces.
And for everyone's knowledge, because I'm not aware, I don't know who Lauren is or Heather. If they could introduce themselves and their relation to the district.
Sure. Lauren DeConstant, I'm the curriculum coordinator over in Seabrook for the elementary and middle, and interim assistant principal while Stephanie's on maternity leave.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heather Cronin. I am the Director of School Counseling at the high school.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, first item on the list is policy EEA, mandatory drug and alcohol testing, school bus drivers.
Yes. So we've confirmed that we're fully compliant with all items on this policy. We've confirmed with First Student. So all of these background checks, all of this that's required for bus drivers. And all of this is required by law and our contract to maintain this full compliance. It's compliant with all the departments of transportation, and all the rules, laws, and regulations. So this is something that's not only required in all the laws and the rules, but we're also already compliant with it in our contract and with the law. So that's why we're bringing this one forward.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. Is this just for buses or is this for overall?
This is drug and alcohol testing for bus drivers.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Killian, does this, I guess, cover our liability if anything happens? Or better yet, how liable are we as a district if anything, God forbid, happened?
So that's something that would be covered in our contract, and we can always rely on Primex.
Okay.
And if there is an issue, something that would be our resource. But certainly, just like with our employees, we're covered.
Okay. Now, on a side note, before we get any further, are we voting on this, or do we do one vote at the end for everything? Or do we not vote at all? I
There are
forget.
votes on each policy.
Okay.
And the vote is just to move them forward to the school boards for a first read.
Okay. Do we have any additional questions on this policy?
Just for my understanding, contract, is that between the SAU and the First Student? So is this now for them to do as they hire? We just put it in a contract so that we are compliant and covering ourselves in a sense, something, gosh forbid, were to happen.
Sure. So this is, because this is required by law, even outside of policy, this is already in the contract between First Student and the SAU and our district. So it's required by law and it's in the contract that First Student has to conduct these checks, these background checks,
Okay.
drug and alcohol testing.
You're
Greg,
muted, Greg.
Any additional comments, questions, or thoughts? Seeing there are none, can I get a motion to move this to first read to the school boards?
I'll make a motion to move policy EEAEA forward to each school board for a first read.
I'll
Can I get
second.
okay. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Rhonda, can we take a roll call?
Greg Parrish,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Romina,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and Sharon.
Yes.
All right, that vote's recorded.
Thank you. Next policy is policy IHBI, alternative learning plans.
yes, so Dr. Hobbs and Heather Cronin will take the next three.
Right, so that, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Right, the next three are, they're credit and curriculum related. And frankly, they are pretty high school centric, but I thought it would be helpful to air them out in this committee first, just so we're all on the same page. So the first one, IHBI, that's alternative learning plans. This is one that we do not currently have on the books. However, it is a practice at Winnicott High School. And basically what this puts together is it codifies the ability for a student to enroll in an alternative learning plan as opposed to taking the standard curriculum and the standard courses through high school. It would require them to have obviously be 18, or if they're under 18, have parent permission, and go through a series of protocols and appeal processes, making sure the program has integrity, and making sure that it adheres to graduation requirements. But it does allow students to develop an alternative learning plan for graduation credit for the high school.
Are these the credits then that would be accepted at Winnicott, which they can use obviously to graduate at Winnicott?
Exactly. So yeah, they would basically sit down with their guidance counselor. They would need sign off from administrators, and they would put together, usually it's an amalgamation of VLAX. There are usually some ELO experiences in there, just things that are outside the normal traditional curricular path. And there's obviously a bunch of stopgaps to make sure that they're hitting their standards. But as long as they do hit their standards, those credits would apply to Winnicott High School and they would graduate with a Winnicott diploma.
Just out of curiosity, who pulls that? I know you said it's a combination of things, but who pulls together sort of what that is going to look like? Do parents do that, or administration? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In the practice right now, it's usually the conduit's usually the counselor, the school counselor. They make sure that the plan is something that meets the requirements of Winnicott High School. I think there are some protocols that are actually listed in the policy, and some stopgaps where we have to make sure that we're hitting all of our standards. And I think one of the things that's happening more often than not now is we are using the ELO program as a conduit for some of those experiences. So say, for example, a kid wants to do an internship down in Boston, they would have that opportunity to do that and gain course credit for it. But obviously somebody needs to make sure that experience passes muster, that they're doing the right thing, that they're hitting their competencies, and that they're being assessed. So that's really been taken care of through the ELO department throughout the last number of years. And I would see that continuing even within the language of this policy. So like I said, it's something we do. I'd say it's an exception rather than the rule for sure at the high school. But we do not have anything in writing and policy on it as of now.
David, how many do we have? How many do we have in a year usually that do these plans?
Low numbers. That's why I invited Heather. Heather, do you happen to know what we do for numbers?
Yeah, I think this year there's about 20 seniors on some type of alternative learning plan, whether it's that they're like, I have a student that's doing an ELO in Boston. She's working for like TB12 and, I think it's great. And then we have others who just are doing like an internship, but it's about 20. And the nice thing about this one, it kind of is that this is a new policy, but we're already doing pretty much everything that it requires of us. Just the ELO program, and we bring these requests to a team of people just to make sure that the curriculum is checking to make sure it's meeting the competencies, the guidance is making sure it meets graduation requirements or elective credits. And then we have our ELO coordinator, Donna Couture, communicating with outside, businesses or agencies to make sure the students doing their part. So, I think whenever you hear a new policy, you're always like, oh boy, what do we have to do to make a change? But the nice thing about this one is we're doing a lot of the work already.
So if a student were to do an internship down in Boston or something like that, how would who is it, the student that kind of figured that out, that would be an opportunity, or does that come through you guys? How does that work?
My personal experiences has been both. The answer is yes. Sometimes it's something that the student actually goes out and pursues. Other times it's something that the student might go to the ELO coordinator or even a teacher, and they might have a friend or know somebody who works for a company that can set them up in the program.
I don't want to get off track, but it just automatically brings up equity, equal opportunity. Are there parents? There are going to be some parents that are going to have more opportunity to be recommending these to their kids, it just makes me kind of think along those lines, just to make sure that it's fair and square among everybody, and that opportunity to do these, it sounds amazing to do these things is spread across the board.
Yeah, that's been on our radar as well. Especially in the budgeting process. We've actually, Donna started to track that data in terms of kids with lower socioeconomic status, kids at risk, and kids with IEPs that are pursuing ELOs. So in fact, it was a leverage point for the second ELO position, as a matter of fact, to expand the ability for us to offer those ELOs across the board. Certainly something on the radar, and certainly something worth being on the radar.
Yeah, awesome. Just as long as it's not coming from, parents that are already in a position, you know what I mean? Like kids that don't have people like that for them.
Yeah, and that's where our counselors come in. I mean, we meet with our students with course selection and planning their 4-year plan. So we'll often say well, if you're interested in this field, let's try to get you, some hands-on experience, or let's try to find you a niche that, you might really enjoy. So we'll do some of that work with them as well. This year, I know we had a program that we actually promoted through our ELO program, was a trade school. Kids would leave our building, not SST, because it was more just like a kind of trial and error to see if kids liked it, but we provided transportation and we had kids do that. So we're trying to do more of that, because I do think you're absolutely right. This, like the student I was talking about in Boston, obviously she had a connection to be able to make that opportunity happen. And how can we expand our ELOs to do that?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, exactly.
The other thing, Sharon, too, is with the ELO programs, because I'm on that board there too. They've got a community, wide board that has a lot of businesses, local businesses and whatnot. So maybe even if the students didn't have the connection, the ELO does have the connections themselves, which is really nice too. So it's an added bonus.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of kid, I think back to myself in high school. I was like, I'm just gonna go to school and do what I'm supposed to do. Anything outside of that, like I just didn't have the support, to even like think along those lines. So it's great that, it sounds like the guidance counselors are amazing. So that's awesome.
Dr. House, how is this tied into either a student trying to obtain their GED or a student with an IEP? Is there differentiating factors there?
Well, I think it would be folded into. It depends on the type of student and what their accommodations were in the IEP.
Okay.
Other than having a completely separate graduation pathway, we would make every effort to roll accommodations or support into an alternative learning plan, just like we would into any kind of ELO. Basically, their accommodations would ideally follow them into that experience.
And the next question, aside from the ELO component, can the same logic be used in our K through 8 environments?
So, I mean, the policy is not written for high school. It says alternative learning plans.
Okay.
However, the infrastructure is built at the high school. I can't see this as something that would be practiced to any extent really at the K through 8. However,
Okay.
you bring up a good point. A kiddo could push that, or a family could push that.
And as long as they met the graduating requirements at the end of their 8th grade and met that, I would assume that would be fine.
Well, it also ties us, Greg, to 1, 2, 3, the 4th paragraph there ties us to a number of other policies with respect to competency based.
Yes.
So the kid and the family would have to meet all those requirements as well.
Okay.
So it provides a pretty good stopgap for that.
Okay.
I have seen middle schools that, they put lots of things under the ELO umbrella. So it may not be for credit, so to speak, as it needs to be for graduation requirements at the high school level. But they have, under extended learning opportunities, more project-based work, field trips, guest speakers, several week-long projects. And they have that under the umbrella of extended learning opportunities. And that said, some students do the other kinds of education opportunities like online learning, which we know can be in the younger grades as well. I think Kelly had a question.
Thank you. Just want to kind of still do career day where they bring in other companies they do. So maybe this is something that when they have a career day, it can be advertised, like to just kind of let companies know that this is an option for students, maybe?
I can speak to that a little bit in that, absolutely, Kelly, you're seeing all the ways that it's all kind of woven together, because a lot of the business partners who are hosts or those partners for ELOs, they also come in for the career fair, and they represent their careers. Students learn about it, and sometimes that's a way for students to kind of get ideas for their next ELO. So absolutely, it's all woven together. And Donna, I believe she still coordinates the career fair. So that's all together, yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Do you see this program expanding or staying kind of at the level it currently is? And if you do see it expanding, will this policy cover any expansion as far as the number of kids that participate in this program?
Yeah, the policy will cover scale, Greg, but like I said, it's been our practice, really. This just hasn't been in the policy, and it serves a certain number of kids in a certain number of scenarios, and that's kind of where it lives.
Okay.
But yeah, the policy is scalable. Really, it's written for schools who don't have as a robust ELO program as we have, frankly, to kind of incentivize this kind of stuff. But in a lot of ways, we're already there.
Okay.
Is this something that it's offered to seniors or any high school kid? Is it age restrictive or grade restrictive or not really?
I think it's more often taken advantage of by upperclassmen because freshmen are just getting used to the high school. They have a lot more required classes, less flexibility in their schedule, and usually sophomores too. Whereas the upperclassmen, they have more flexibility. They've gotten a lot of the required credits under their belt, and they're looking for a way to, explore careers or expand their knowledge and opportunity. And I don't think I'm not sure as far as the Winnicott rules at this point. I don't think it's really encouraged at the freshman level for those reasons.
Yeah, they frankly just don't have the room in their schedules.
Mhm.
Any additional questions for Dr. Hobbs or Heather? Can I get a motion to move this forward to first read for the school boards, please?
I'll make a motion to move the IHBI forward to each school board for the first read.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Rhonda, can we take a roll call?
Greg,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Nermina,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and Sharon.
Yes.
All right, that vote's recorded.
Thank you. Next item is policy IKF, early graduation.
High school graduation, right?
I'm sorry, yes, high school graduation.
Yeah, IKF. That is one we do have currently on the books as a Winnicott policy. It's impossibly old. It's 2008. So that needed to be updated. The one that you see in front of you has a few different sections. I can just kind of bullet them out. First of all, in terms of the required subjects and credits for high school graduation, that's pulled right from the Ed 300 rules. That's the minimum standards for a high school diploma. Winnicott more than exceeds on every capacity with respect to that first section. We decided to keep the language in there because it's the state's language and it's standard, and it'll be translatable to any students coming in or leaving Winnicott. They have competencies by content area, which again, we more than meet at Winnicott High School. And then they have 4 other sections. Awarding of credit, that already lived in our former policy. Credit will be awarded in accordance with policy IK. So that's something that will be unchanged for us at Winnicott. Alternative credit options, that ties into policy that's already on the books. Alternative learning plans, we just talked about that. And then the last one is important though. It's the passage of the civics exam. This puts into policy a law that has been passed that we adhere to, but it's the passage of a civics exam in order for high school graduation. And we placed it in, I believe it's in senior capstone, right, Heather? It's like a Foundations of Democracy class. Okay. But yeah, we do adhere to that already, but it does put it into policy. That's something that came through this year and will be implemented across the state in the fall. So I'll pause there if you guys have questions on that.
Any questions? Seeing no questions, can I get a motion to move this to the school boards for first read?
I'll make a motion to move policy IKF forward to each school board for a first read.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Sorry, any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Rhonda, can we take a roll call?
Greg,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Nermina,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and Sharon.
Yes.
All right, I have that vote recorded.
Thank you. Now we're at early graduation. Sorry about that.
No worries. And this one, IKFA, we do already have currently on the books. This is just written with updated language. It's priority required by the law, but there's really no substantive change from the 2004 policy that we currently have.
Any questions for Dr. Hobbs? Seeing no questions, can I get a?
I have
I'm
a
sorry.
quick question,
ahead.
sorry.
Yep.
At what point do the parents get involved with that, right? Does that kind of sneak up on you that you're able to graduate early, or is that something you know, like well in advance?
I'll let Heather, you know this better than I do, to be honest.
Yeah, so the parents would get involved as soon as the student starts having that conversation. It doesn't really sneak up because with our 110 diploma requirement, it actually takes a lot of planning to get to graduate a whole year early. A lot of times students will have to do work outside of Winnicott just to meet all the requirements. Because like, I said, we have 110, which would be a lot to get to in 3 years. So the planning of that really starts to happen sophomore year, because especially if you're graduating a year early, you're then scheduling your junior year classes to have junior and senior year classes, plus maybe doing some additional work over the summer to lessen your load. So we have very few students that choose to do that, and we really encourage students to have a plan and a purpose if they're going to make that decision. And we definitely want family support for that, because that is a big decision to graduate a year early. And very few students are able to really manage that because of the requirements that are necessary to have that happen.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, what do they do? Do they move on to college early? Like, what do most of them do?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I right now have a sophomore talking about that, and she's looking to take a gap year and do some mission work out in Hawaii. So I think it's, if they go to college at 17, they need parent permission to do anything. So it like changes things to live in a dorm, like you're young to be living with 18 and up, older kids. So, if we talk about some of those things, like this is, you want to have a plan. What's your purpose? Just get done school early. Where are you going next? Because you're going to be 17 and that's, you're young. And we have a lot, I've experienced in the past kids who say they want to do it and then they decide, never mind, I don't want to do it. So we always tell them if they change their mind, they certainly can come back their senior year. But it's very, very few students, I want to say, 1 or 2 max a year that will actually graduate a year early.
Heather, how does the
Some kids
district
work, and if their families, need money, they'll work. That's another thing. They just want to start working, at a young age and support their families, and that's a valid reason too. That's what they see themselves doing. So.
Heather, is there a psychological component to this for the district? We're talking very young people, leaving high school at 17, graduating, moving on to the next step of their lives. And in some cases, these kids many probably are not ready for that, but is there a psychological component the district looks at to see if the student is ready to do this, or is because the parents are involved, it changes?
I mean, it's a lot of communication, and we try to stress all of the factors, right? Like if you graduate early, you're going to be 17 and you're going to be, if your plan is to go to college, these are the things you might run up against, like going to college, right? Like you're living in a dorm, you need parent permission. To be honest, the number of kids that actually do it, it's just so few that, after discussions and I'm thinking about it, it's lots of conversation, but ultimately, honestly, it is the parents and family's decision. Like we can push them one way or the other, but if that's what their family decision is, then that is what we would support as a school.
And
Okay.
if I can just add one piece, isn't it the case that most early graduations are really just a trimester early or 2 trimesters early? I seem to remember there are students, they'd finish up and they'd say, I'm done just a little bit early and I'm going to start my job or take my gap year and get started with that. It's not necessarily a full year.
Yeah, I mean, so technically graduation's in June, whether you're done trimester 2 or trimester 1. So I always caution people when they say they want to graduate early. I'm always like, you're not really graduating until June. So we have those conversations too. Like you really can't start college. Even if you finish trimester 1, you're get accepted to a college until the next year. You can't get financial aid. You can't do any of that stuff until you actually graduate, which is that same year. So there will be students that complete their requirements early, and then we might put them on an alternative learning plan to do whatever that they're doing, whether it's working. And so I just try to caution people, it's a little bit different than actually graduating early, because they don't graduate until June of that year. But that is certainly thing, some students will do that. They want to finish their requirements early and then work full time to make money for college, or, do that. And that is, again, a case by case situation that we would consider like an alternative learning plan for.
Thank you.
Any
So if
additional
they
que-
finish their, oh, sorry, Greg, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Norman. I was going to ask anybody any questions.
Okay. If they finish their coursework early, say it is in first trimester, they don't have to report back to school at all anymore. They're done until that
No, so-
graduation day.
That's a good question. So if they were going to not attend school, right, there would have to be some alternative learning plan, because technically to be a full-time student, you have to be enrolled in 5 classes. So they would, a lot of students graduate with more requirements than actually needed, which, it just happens with the 3 trimesters. So it's a rare situation that a student finishes all their requirements in trimester 1, but it can happen if the schedule works out that they get all their senior requirements in that first trimester. And if they had a plan, we could talk about them working and doing an ELO, an alternative learning plan, to maintain their full-time student status and then still graduate with the class. So it's not just like, oh, I'm done, I don't have to come to school. Or, we have seniors now who are saying, I only need these 2 classes. Why do I have to come to school for 5 courses? But there is something, and there is something by the state where to be a full-time student, you have to take so many units of coursework that trimester. So it goes a little bit more than just like, you're done, you're all set, you can go.
Good. I just didn't want my son to take look at that, be like, oh, I'm going to be out.
Yeah. And in the graduation policy, it talks about units of coursework that you need to be considered a high school student. So we have to, hold that for them.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Any additional questions? Seeing there's no more questions, can I get a motion to move policy IKF to the school boards for first read?
I will make a motion to move the IKFA forward to each school board for the first read.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Rhonda, can we get a roll call?
Yes. Greg,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Nermina,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and Sharon.
Yes.
Okay, I have that vote recorded.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item E, policy JI, student rights and responsibilities.
Thank you. So this brief policy, thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks,
So
Heather.
everyone, have a good night.
Thanks for
You
coming.
too.
Heather's phenomenal. We couldn't do it without her. Just a little plug there. She's a phenomenal part of Winnicott. Fantastic. She's brand new to us and doing a fantastic job. So JI, rights and responsibilities. This is a brief one to reflect some minor changes. We approved this last year, but there are just some minor changes. So, and it's required. So it's about students, their rights and their responsibilities. They have to be published annually in our handbooks. And that, we're required to provide them in other languages or orally upon request. And in addition, all of our disciplinary procedures will be implemented pursuant the next policies that we're going to cover. So this is all related, the next 3 policies.
You say we have to provide that in other languages. Is it the languages of the students that we have in school?
Yes, so if a parent, and this is true for special education too, in that if we have a family who can't read our materials, we need to provide it in the language that makes it accessible to them. So when it comes to things like rights and responsibilities and laws and special education, parental safeguards, we have to make sure that parents have access to that. When I say access, I mean, if it's provided in a language they can't read, they don't have access to that. So we then have to provide it in whatever language that they can read.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Seeing there are no further questions, can I get a motion to move policy JI to each school board for the first read?
I make a motion that we move policy JI forward to each school board for a first read.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? Seeing there is none, Rhonda, can we take a roll call?
Greg,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Nermina,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and Sharon.
Yes.
Okay, I have that vote recorded.
Thank you. Next item is policy JIC, student conduct.
Thank you. So this policy has been recategorized as required by law, and most of our districts do not have this policy. As far as student conduct, the policy was revised, so it is a good time to adopt this policy. It was revised, and the note from NHSBA, it's largely revised due to the greater emphasis on emotional and academic needs of students through support and intervention strategies before excluding a student from school. So, you know, as we're reading about conduct and about the next policy as well, student discipline and due process, students have rights. Even when they, you know, break the rules, when they have any kind of misconduct, there's a new push in education in that there needs to be support and intervention strategies. It can't just be a detention or an expulsion or suspension. There needs to be systems of support and layers of different kinds of interventions and communication with staff as we're working with students who need support. So, and that's now required. So that's something that is recommended. It's infused throughout these two policies. It's frankly, I think it's a move in the right direction. And some of our schools are already doing some of these, practicing some of these different procedures with regards to discipline and when we have the student conduct issues. But this policy is only going to strengthen that and empower and enable our staff to keep moving forward with it.
Dr. Killian, how, I got to formulate this question. How's the language from our policies transferred over to the student handbook, or is the policy itself as written included in the student handbook?
So for some pieces that the entire policy needs to be an appendix on the back. So that's true for some policies. And other policies, there's instructions within this policy of how we have it within our handbooks. So for example, in the student conduct policy here, expectations for student conduct and standards of behavior shall be communicated. And those policies and rules should be included in the student parent handbook for each. So it can be listed, it can be summarized. And sometimes, like this one, is pretty explicit and clear, the code of conduct and so on. This one should probably be attached. The whole thing should be attached to the handbook.
So which, is it the policy or the student handbook that is recognized by the administration when dealing with an issue in a student?
I would say the policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any additional questions for Dr. Akilian? Seeing no further questions, can I get a motion to move policy JIC to school boards for first read?
I'll
I'll
make
make
a
a
motion.
motion.
Oh, go ahead.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Rhonda, can we take a roll call?
Sure. Greg,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Nermina,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and Sharon.
Yes.
I have that vote recorded.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item G, policy JICD, student discipline and due process.
Thank you. So this is a very long policy, 8 pages long policy. This was also revised due to the addition of MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support, as it pertains to discipline. But the staff are already complying with these. There's different requirements with regards to detention, length of suspensions, length of in-school or out-of-school suspensions. And then as far as the communication process, there's, it has to involve the superintendent. There are a certain number of days that, that the school can only lengthen a suspension, and at which point a family is eligible for the due process intervention. So there's, all of this is something that was included before, but they reorganized it, and they included the multi-tiered system of support.
Any questions for Dr. Killian? Okay, seeing there are no questions, bear with me. Can we get a motion to move policy JICD forward to the school boards for first read?
I'll make a motion to move the JICD forward for each school board.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, Rhonda, can we take a roll call?
Greg,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Nermina,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and Sharon.
Yes.
I have that vote recorded.
Thank you. Other policies, are these being reviewed? Well, I'll let you take it over, Dr. Killian. Policy KCD, public gifts and donations.
That's right. Thank you. So the next 2 policies here under other policies, these were not required by law, but the next 2 were requested by our auditors, and they've been requested on more than one occasion. You'll see here that where you see italics, that's in our existing board policy, and the regular font is what is newly recommended by NHSBA. So really that first one, the KCD public gifts and donations, the piece that is new is all the way at the end, this section I, about active solicitation of gifts to be received by the district through online crowdfunding websites. So that's something that's new. We had that request before. We had donations in the past. So crowdfunding websites must be approved in advance by the superintendent or designee where the value of the gift sought is less than $500, and by the board where the value of the gift sought is $500 or greater. So we must approve any kind of solicitation through crowdfunding websites prior to anything being posted.
Dr. Killian, does this apply to, let's say there's a student group at Winnicott that wants to take donations for a charity that's outside of the school? do they still need to go through this process with the superintendent approving a crowdfunding source for such an occasion? Or is that completely different?
You know, that could be different because that's a charity situation where this is, you know, like if the class of 2024 wants to raise money to, you know, install some benches in the lobby of the high school. That's a gift to the school, you know, whereas raising money for charity, I think that's different.
Okay.
Would sports come into that as well? I mean, I know a lot of sports team raise money for different things.
That would be under this, yes.
Go ahead.
Remind everybody, all of your audit reports that you got, this was the thing that the auditors commented on every district that needing the crowdfunding information.
So then in that case, like PAL people, I know ours is just did for Northampton. They do fundraising all the time to raise money for different things at the school. They will now have to come to the school board if they're raising more than 500.
So yes, although PAL, that's a parent organization, is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
So they're not, so this would be the district, you know, if we had employees who had their raise, if we were doing it on our behalf, we would need to, our staff would have to get permission through me for under 500 or from the board for over that. Whereas a parent organization, it's not my understanding that a PAL organization would have to do that through us, no.
Okay.
Would a PAL organization, and I'm not familiar with that, be equivalent to our PTOs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any additional questions for Dr. Arkelian? Seeing there are no additional questions, can I get a motion to move policy KCD to the school boards for first read?
I'll make a motion to move the policy KCD forward to each school for the first read.
Can I use a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, Rhonda, can we take a roll call?
Yes, Greg,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Ermina,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and Sharon.
Yes.
I have that vote recorded.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is policy DJE, bidding requirements.
Yes, thank you. So this is a policy that was called something different in all of our districts. And we also standardized. When I say we, I mean Nancy Tuttle. Standardized the, let's see, so an amount exceeding 15,000 shall be based when feasible on at least 3 competitive bids. So all purchases in the amount of 15,000 or less may be made in the open market, but shall, when possible, be based on at least 3 competitive quotations or prices. So Matt and Nancy standardized this to be the same across. There were some less than this. And this is also something that the auditors bring up on multiple occasions.
Any questions? I have one, Dr. Arkelian.
Okay.
At the end of each of our policies, and this isn't specific to this policy, we have all of the revised dates. Now, on this particular policy, there are 3 revisions to it, and we're about to add a 4th. Will it become another line item that indicates there's been 4 revisions to this? And do we keep a history of the previous policy to track what the revisions to the policy over a period of time is?
I think Rhonda wants to comment on this.
Hi, Rhonda.
Hi. First off, the policy you're looking at, that's the MHSBA sample policy. Okay, so that is their revision dates at the bottom. Our revision dates are separate. We have tracked them. We have been currently tracking them. I can't speak to how they were tracked prior to me. I will say that I have been in the process of migrating all of the policies over into the policy section on board docs. And you can all go in there and look at the policies now. So I'm almost finished, and it will tell you the revision dates, the reviewed dates, the dates of adoption, as best I can tell based on the existing policies that we have. And, you know, so all of that is tracked. And even when policies are retired, you know, through the board docs platform, we have a much better way of tracking all of that. Whereas before it was paper copies. I did not always know where they ended up. I mean, there's some policies that's in the old paper books that we were using a few years ago that said a revision in 2004, but it never told me when it was adopted. So, you know, I'm just going with the oldest date I can find in the new platform that we're going to release in board docs, and it's going to have that date. So everything will be there, and it'll show all the, you know, various times the policy has been revised.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry to sidetrack everyone. Does anyone have any additional questions on policy DJE bidding requirements? Seeing there are no questions, can I get a motion to move policy DJE to the school boards for first read?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Additional conversations? Seeing none, Rhonda, can we take a roll call?
Greg,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Nermina,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and Sharon.
Yes.
I have that vote recorded.
Thank you. Is that it?
That's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, I think the board needs to vote to, Sharon, you should step in. You're doing a great job with all those seconds. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Before you do that, can I just point out that these are the last policies required by law. We started this process 3 years ago, trying to get these all up to date and in place, and I think that's something to be pretty proud of.
Yay.
Wait,
Yes.
so Becky doesn't have to go to any more meetings?
Oh, no,
We still have
She owes you coffee, or at least.
Seriously.
there's still more to do.
still more to do.
The basic ones that we should have had in place that and many times we didn't. So now we at least can have that off our shoulders. So, okay, Greg, go ahead.
Good job, Rhonda.
Yeah, I think Sharon wants to become part of this group.
I know, you guys are fun.
It's a lot easier than school board meetings.
Yeah.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
guys. Thank you.
everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye.
I might see you next time. Who knows?
Yay.